What's up, everybody? My name is Blake, and you're watching Midwest Ordnance. And today I'm going to be talking about HB 85, or the Second Amendment Preservation Act, in my home state of Missouri. Now, for those of you who don't know what the Second Amendment Preservation Act is, it pretty much nullifies and voids all federal gun control that has ever been made. So, the National Firearms Act of 1934, the Gun Control Act of 1968, the Hughes Amendment, which is the machine gun ban, so on and so on. Now, and also with doing that, at the state level at least, so let's say I was going to take this rifle lower and I wanted to slap a short barrel on it. Or if I wanted to mill this part out and turn it into a low shelf receiver and drill that sweet third hole to make this into a machine gun, or I think I said this already, short barreled rifle, without it being registered and without having to pay the tax. So technically at the state level this would be okay, federal level not. And what that would do is, if any law enforcement agency, at least in the state of Missouri, was to help and abate the federal government, you could sue that individual up to $50,000 in civil court. And there's a whole bunch more, which I'm going to be quoting the armed attorneys a lot in this video. But as of recently, the bill just a few days ago, and I know I'm a little bit late on this video to begin with, but as of a few days ago, this bastard right here, Brian C. Wims, or Wimes, however you pronounce his name, struck down the bill, which means now that this bill is not in effect. So I would say, for those of you who have the NFA items, machine guns, if you have them, short-barreled rifles, unregistered suppressors, all that good stuff, be careful, because now you're gonna start looking at federal charges. So now you don't have the state to protect you. So I'd be careful. Don't post anything. Don't do shit with it. But what he did is he said that this bill is, this bill is unconstitutional because it violates the Supremacy Clause. It violates federal supremacy. If I recall, the Constitution has more than just those amendments. It's the first 10. The Bill of Rights comes first. I personally don't give a damn about federal supremacy or what have you when it comes to our right to bear arms. Because the only thing that supersedes the federal government is the Second Amendment. Keep in mind, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, was written by us the people. It even says, we the people. Not we the government, we the people. And we the people told the federal government what they can and cannot do. What rights they cannot and cannot touch. Shall not be infringed is pretty damn clear. And that's what this was doing. Now, I will say that also this bill had a little bit of teeth to it. That's why ours was so special. That's why we fought so damn hard to get this passed. And I'll just let the legally armed attorneys tell you what it is. And that, personally, I don't mind it.
But it had a pretty, like you said, far end of the spectrum, had some pretty harsh penalties.
Yes. I mean, well, first of all, if the state of Missouri, if anybody inside the state violated the Second Amendment Preservation Act and they got sued over it by any law-abiding citizen, then they were on the hook for attorney's fees, for damages, and there was lots on the line. Plus, any of the law enforcement agents who cooperated with the federal government, really it was pretty wide sweeping. It wasn't just cooperation. I mean, there's like a throwaway line in there about just like basically adding any aiding in any right. So I mean, it's very, very broad. But those law enforcement officers were to be fired and were prohibited from ever working as law enforcement officers again in the state of Missouri. So
now, like I said, personally, I don't mind it because, this is our right. The federal government has no jurisdiction to touch it whatsoever. And I feel as if, for one, the NFA, the GCA, those restrictions shouldn't be placed on us. Shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed. You are not to make laws. You are not to make rules. You are not to do anything that regulates my right to bear arms. Not a one. So if there should be any regulation on any sort of people, it should be the people within the federal government or law enforcement agencies. And if you're going to enact and enforce tyrannical gun control, then yeah, I personally don't mind, if you get fired. You deserve it. Because you are treading on somebody else's constitutional God-given rights. And you are working for the state and or the federal government. That's just my opinion.
When you passed this law, any lawyer who looked at it said, this law is invalid. So instead of fighting laws like that, look and say, how do we take down the Gun Control Act? How do we take down the National Firearms Act? File lawsuits based on Bruin grounds that we know we can win, and use your resources that way instead of using your resources stupidly on symbolic fights you're going to lose.
I don't think it's a stupid fight. In fact, I think this is the way that we should be going if we can't get anything done in Congress. Because Republicans, they claim that they're pro-gun. Well, Republicans were in office from 2016, I believe, to 2021? 2016 to 2018 or 2020. I can't remember. But they had Congress and the House, and yet they passed no pro-gun bills. They didn't pass anything to remove SBRs from the NFA. They didn't make bills to reopen the registration for new manufactured machine guns. They did none of that. And so I personally think that this is actually the step of where we should go and to further our Second Amendment rights, because obviously we're not getting anywhere with the federal government. I would say let's start doing it state by state. Because the way I see it is the Second Amendment Preservation Act was really nothing different than legalizing marijuana. And marijuana is legal, I believe, in majority of the country at the state level, but it's still illegal at the federal level. Well, that's what SEPA's pretty much doing. And the feds really aren't even going after marijuana people. They're really not going after the people who possess marijuana a whole bunch. I mean, they are in like little instances here and there, but I mean, they're not cracking anywhere near than, these damn things. Or God forbid, you have a pistol brace on. They're not cracking down on any of that crap. So, I personally think that this is the way that we need to go. Because we're already having constitutional carry. That's now in 25 states at the recording of this video. And I believe it's 3 or 4 more on the way by the end of the year, which means majority of the country. But that's besides the point. So no, I don't think this is a stupid way to go. I don't think this is a stupid bill. And personally, the way I see it is I don't see any lawyer who would actually look at the document and think that this is ridiculous, it's unconstitutional. Again, I think it's based on Bruin grounds before Bruin actually happened. Because in Bruin it says to go by history, text, and tradition. That's what SAPA pretty much does. It goes back and nullifies all the federal gun control. Well, there was no gun control in 1791. There was none. Unless you count the gun restrictions on blacks and Indians, but they weren't considered American citizens at the time. So that really doesn't count. If anything, the first federal gun control law was the National Firearms Act, but that's not long-standing history and tradition. So if we're going to get anywhere, I think it's going to be, going at the state level and telling the federal government, hey, piss off on our rights. If you're not going to do anything about it, then we're going to do something about it. Ultimately, I think that's where we need to head. And I don't think this is a feel-good bill either, because if it was, the Second Amendment Preservation Act would not have the teeth and threaten, people's livelihoods if they enact tyrannical gun control to be ruined. Again, you're a law enforcement agency. You take an oath to uphold the Constitution. That includes the shall not be infringed part. Again, you're treading on somebody else's rights. If you want to go ahead and do that, then fine. But don't bitch, whine, cry, and complain, when you're getting sued in civil court and you get fired from your job. That's just my opinion. Whether it be unpopular, I don't know. But we the people have had too many gun restrictions to follow. It's nice to see a flip for the other change. And I'm going to talk about one more thing here too. And again, I'm going to show another part of the armed attorneys.
You got a crystal ball? What's going to happen?
Yes, crystal ball says the Eighth Circuit is going to agree with the district court, is going to say that this Second Amendment Protection Act is not constitutional. It violates federal supremacy, and the Supreme Court is not going to take it up because there is no fight to be had. So anytime a Second Amendment Sanctuary Act looks like this one, it is going to come down, and the Supreme Court is not going to tell us one way or the other. So just circuit by circuit, it'll fall. I mean, even the Fifth Circuit, who has done us so many wonderful favors. Now, Texas's law doesn't go this far, and I don't think it's actionable, but I don't think the Fifth Circuit would do any favors had this occurred in the Fifth Circuit.
So yeah, I really disagree with what she said. In fact, I think it's going to be the complete opposite. My state attorney general, Andrew Bailey, said that he is going to... I actually see this going to the Supreme Court. And if it does, that could be a very big L that the federal government could probably take. Completely disregard the fact of federal supremacy. We're talking about the Second Amendment. And this is personally what I think it's revolving around. It's the Second Amendment. That's what this bill is surrounded by. It's to give you, it's to give me 100% of our Second Amendment rights. And there's a lot of court cases from the Supreme Court that I could name off of. The fact that I cannot put a short barrel on this, I cannot make it a machine gun without having to tax, and taxing a right is unconstitutional. And also, I think, what was it? Marbury versus Madison that said any law, well, I'll just post it up here and I'll show you because I really don't want to butcher the crap out of it. Law of the land. The general misconception is that any statute passed by the legislators bearing the appearance of law constitutes the law of the land. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and any statute to be valid must be an agreement. It is impossible for a law which violates the Constitution to be valid. This succinctly, I think I'm pronouncing that right, stated as follows. All laws are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void. Marbury versus Madison. Where rights are secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rulemaking or legislation that would abrogate them. And then Miranda versus Arizona. So yeah, technically by just the Constitution and that Supreme Court ruling alone, I should be able to turn this and have it as a short barrel machine gun, But now that the law is struck down, so thank you, Federal Judge Brian Wims, for completely just fucking the state over. You did a real service to us. It's most definitely going to come back. That's all I got for this video, guys. To me, I think it's a little bit heated. But I thought I would want to make this known. I feel like I need to make a video about it because this does affect me personally because I am a resident of the state of Missouri. I pay my taxes. I ended up voting yes on this bill, actually. I called my local and state representatives to vote yes on this. So, being a gun owner, you know, that affects me. So, do I see this coming back and do I see it winning in the 8th Circuit? Yes. Do I see the federal government appealing that and then going to the Supreme Court? Yes. Now, do I see the Supreme Court taking this case up and then ruling in favor of it? Because, again, I do think it was before Bruin, I believe. And it was on Bruin grounds. Whether they remand it back down to the 8th Circuit Court, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. It's just my guess. But hopefully we get it back. And if you like this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It really helps me out. If you want to see more videos like this, well, I already said that. Give me a thumbs up. So, as always, guys, thank you guys for watching. Stay safe and stay armed.